Welcome to the official dedication ceremony of the Harvey Springstead Memorial Tower here in historic Waldwick, New Jersey. I'm Mike Greeley, and I'm proud to be your master of ceremonies for this historic event, and I ask you to join me now, please, in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please stand for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Again, a couple of reminders. We have those two brief drawings, so be sure to fill out that card. And one of the drawings will have as a prize some memorabilia about the tower, and one, as I explained, will allow you to be the first group to climb up the steps, the switch control room on the second floor. So fill out those cards now, make sure you got them in. All right, now the official ribbon cutting. I'm going to ask Mr. Curtis Springstead, who is the great-grandson of Harvey Springstead, the locomotive engineer for whom this tower is named, to come forward to the top of the steps, and also Mrs. Lorraine Knoll. Are you here, Mrs. Knoll? Mrs. Lorraine Keeble Knoll. Mrs. Knoll, they offered the dedication of the second floor of the tower in honor of her brother. He's a railroad man also, so here they come. Got the official ribbon. One on each side, two cuts there, okay? Here's the picture, guys. They're coming this way. All right. I'll tell you what. Can you just turn around for camera? Turn around for camera. That's it. Wave to him. Just wave to him. Say, okay, that's it. Now you got it. All right, here we go. Here's the official opening. One more. One more down front. Okay, get those scissors going. Here's the official opening. And the tower is now open. Now, thank you all for coming here today. The rain held off. This little tower's got some kind of secret connection. And I must tell you, taking part in this program for you and I, indeed, are part of a very important day in history. Not only the history of railroad, for which this tower is honoring, the workmen of the railroad, the people involved that lived here, but also this wonderful borough of Waldwick, New Jersey. Very historic day. We're pleased to be part of it. A day that honors the many workers in those early days of the railroad, the folks who worked 7 days a week, 24 hours a day to keep the Iron Horse running through here. They worked every hour of the day out of this tower. The workers had 3 shifts a day operating the tower. And I read where Samuel Green was the gentleman's name. Worked in the little tower for 50 long years. Samuel Green. And of course, many of the tower operators lived right here in Waldwick, including the first mayor of Waldwick, John Quackenbush. But there were hundreds of railroad workers who lived and worked here in the rail yard that was an active repair depot and turn station for the Erie Main Line from Jersey City to Port Jervis. There were conductors and firemen and brakemen and engineers. There were gandy dancers. They had homes here. And if you don't know what a gandy dancer is, ask your pop if you're a little one. The gandy dancers. Passenger cars were stored here. There was an engine service shop and a freight station. We've all heard the story of the little engine that could. Well, this is the little tower that did, simply did, not a little job, but a big job, over 115 years ago. 115 years ago. The original base is still on the tower floor. They've restored it. It's a great, great project. It's been here since 1890. Actually, I had a strange feeling when I went up there and looked out of the tower. I came over earlier this week to take a peek, and it really gives you a feeling when you look out at the tracks from up there. Actually, the Patterson and Ramapo Railroad opened its line through Waldwick in 1848. In 1852, the New York and Lake Erie Railroad got control of that line and renamed it the Erie Railroad. But the trains have been stopping here in Waldwick since the 1880s. This building has been standing tall and looking down on the tracks of the New York, Erie, and Western Railroad, signaling and switching commuter trains, at first by the big levers known as Armstrong levers that move the tracks and the signals after a mighty tug up there in this tower. Move the tracks over and the signals. And in those days, of course, a lot of the locomotives were steam that came through here. They saw those signals. And I'm told that in the past, hundreds of trains passed through or originated in Waldwick. And the operators in the WC Tower, see the WC up there? I'm told that's Waldwick Crossing. Waldwick Crossing, that's what that stands for. All kinds of weather, rain and snow, no air conditioning up there year after year and day and night. Moving the mechanism, connecting switches and signals, and allowing trains to safety was an issue, from one track to another. Climbing up those steps to the tower, they used to have a little pot-bellied stove up there. They're hoping to get one again as it becomes a museum later on, and they continue to work on this with your donations. They had telegraph keys for communications. Talk about history. 115 years and named officially the Harvey Springstead Memorial Tower is on the National Register of Historic Places. So Waldwick is on that registry because of this tower as one of the places in history. And will be a museum in 2006, hopefully with the help of a lot of those donations. For now, just a lot of memories as you look out. More about that, and Mr. Springstead, who incidentally was a locomotive engineer who lived in Waldwick. He was a locomotive engineer. If you look and see, there's a rendering of him on the side of the tower at the bottom. He lived in Waldwick. We'll hear more about him and his family from his great-grandson, Curtis Springstead, who cut the ribbon, and we'll do the official honors in a moment. But what about the restoration of the signal tower? And I'd like you to meet this morning, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Brunkhorst. Michael is the president of the Waldwick Historical Society. Here's Michael. A lot of hard work this guy did to get this thing.
Good morning. Thanks, Mike. I'd like to thank you all for coming. I was talking to some friends this morning and thinking, you know, this project has not been a project, it's been very small steps at a time. It's just been an amazing story on how people have chipped in what they could, and all those pieces, as in pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, came together, and you're looking at almost a completed puzzle right here. I'd like to just spend a few moments to tell the story a little bit of why we're all here today and how we got here, and also the people who have contributed along the way. Pretty much in 1987, the tower was really slated for demolition because the Erie was going through, and for insurance reasons and safety reasons, they were demolishing these towers up and down the lines because at that time the switching switched over to computerization from, I believe it's from Jersey City and from other central locations. So the towers became obsolete. At that time, the Waldwick Historical Society, led by Kay Williams, heard about that and went through the efforts to get the tower registered both on a statewide and national level. By doing that, I believe there's tenets that it's a lot more difficult to demolish something that's on the registry. That was the only thing that could have been done at that time, and it was very effective, as we can see. After that, a couple years later, the Erie actually put it up for sale, and it was bought by a private citizen who was involved in trying to save other buildings. And then I believe it was in 1999, Glenn Corbett and I had heard through the grapevine that it was going to be sold again. And that's when we mounted this effort. We put together, we got the idea of the All Aboard Committee. We started campaigns, and we got people to come to town council meetings. And then at that point, sometime in the spring, I believe, Curtis Springstead had heard about our efforts. He came forward and made the offer to pay the asking price and then have it donated to the town that it could be covered under the town insurance umbrella. That was the main reasons why we didn't take it directly. And through the efforts of a lot of people showing up, and the mayor, Jim Tulin at the time, and the council responded. And as a result of that, then they accepted Mr. Springstead's donation. And then the real work started. You know, once we passed that point, then we had to begin fundraising activities. And also Curtis really spearheaded the effort to gain grants from the county. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I want to back up. The early members of the All Aboard group, we did surveys of different buildings up and down the rails to find out how they had acquired their buildings and how they had maintained them. And we presented all this information to the council, and then based on that information, they gave us the go-ahead. You know, a lot of people, some of them aren't here today, but you know, they took their time out to do those surveys, to do the campaigns, to work behind the scenes, and we owe a great debt of gratitude and thanks to them. So I want to take a moment to thank Frank McKenna, because he came up with the idea of selling bricks at the Veterans Plaza, which created the first group of money that we could use as matching funds to the county. And that was a very creative way of doing it. It gave people from town a chance to memorialize their ancestors and relatives, and at the same time it provided some seed money that we could start on this project. So that was great. I just wanted to give Frank a big thanks for that. And then also Bob Campbell, who followed up afterwards with all the nitpicky work of keeping track of the names and keeping track of the slips and the money flow to make sure that everything came back to us. So that was really great behind the scenes work. And that pretty much that brings us to today. Once we got the first county grant, then we began to get messages from Mr. Robert Keeble's family. Mr. Robert Keeble, I'm going to let Curtis really tell his story, but I just wanted to give you a brief bio. He was a railroad enthusiast, and a friend of his took him around to a number of buildings that needed some help. And he actually bequeathed a certain amount of money to be able to help this project get further along and to really guarantee that we could get to this point. And at that point, we continued on. We got another level of grant money from the county, which enabled us to go beyond the clean out and then begin to work on the exterior. There was a lot of landscaping that needed to be done around here. A lot of volunteer hours were put in, a lot of clearing. I don't know if you might check out some of the early photos. It's quite a contrast. Okay, at this time, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask Mayor Vanderwen to come up and say a few words. I want to thank him for coming today. Thank you very much.
Good morning. It's a great honor for Councilwoman O'Dwyer, Councilwoman Bozzo, Councilman Shalaro, and I to be here. Oh, there's Councilman Campbell, and I to be here this morning to congratulate everyone on this beautiful edifice and what they've been able to do. I'm just a great believer that in order for us to survive the future, we have to understand and appreciate the past. And that's exactly what a lot of very caring individuals were able to do in improving this fantastic, fantastic structure. Currently, the Borough of Waldwick are the owners of this facility, but just to let you know, I know very well that the best way for something like this to survive and to continue is for it to be in the hands of the people that are so passionate about it. People like Mike and Glenn and Curtis and Art and others who have worked so hard on it. So the Borough of Waldwick is working very hard to turn this property over to the Historical Society. Meanwhile, enjoy this wonderful building and all the wonderful history and information it's going to impart to us, and thank everyone for making this day a realization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Michael. The county executive is here. Let's welcome him, Dennis McInerney. Where are you, Dennis? Come on up here. We'll give you about a minute and a half in the hot sun. There's a lot of people to thank, friends. On your program, you'll see a list on the back of the program. I know it's warm and all that good stuff. But here's Mr. McInerney. Come on up here. All right, he's got a jacket on too. You see, I knew you'd wear it. You got to be. You're the county executive. You have a jacket on.
I don't want to repeat all the names that you said, but you know, everybody who works to get to this point. I don't live far from here, and I have a big enthusiast in my family. My 4-year-old is here, so it's very important that I come here personally. But really, we discussed it down in Hackensack with the freeholders, and this is a terrific endeavor. And you told the history of how we got to the point to county funding. I think that was really the hard work. So I just want to correct what you said earlier. The hard work was the town of Borough of Waldwick, the previous mayor, the current council, the previous council, everybody who worked behind the scenes to get to where you are. But again, thank you. And I have the first proclamation to go on the new wall honoring the Waldwick Signal Tower dedication ceremony, September 15, 2005. Congratulations. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Kurt, in a moment. Thank you, Michael Brockhurst, Mayor Vanderwent, and Dennis. Someone asked me, actually, I think it was probably my wife, Arlene, what am I doing up here? Nobody asked that, right? Who's that old guy? I was the original hobo. Got off a train someplace around here, and I knocked on the Mistretta house, right on the other side of BC Communications. No, seriously, I came to that house 20 years ago. And I met John and Rose Mistretta. And oh, did they watch this tower, watch it go up. They were part of it. Rose was on the All Aboard committee. John made signs that used to be in the railroad station and around town. He was a silk screen artist. And his lovely wife, Rose, worked so hard in this Zaghetti Street area and Bonner Place. They both passed on. Left some funds for this area. Later on, I believe a bench is going to be named for them in this general area. And I met the Mistretta family and Perry Quaranta, the television commercial producer. I met the Mistrettas, Janine and Nancy, and of course, and the top graphic artists of the nation, Andrea Mistretta, who did that wonderful rendering of the tower on your program today. And there's a picture of it over here in case you want to make a donation and take that home with you. But you are the best, Andrea Mistretta and the Mistretta family. I love you all. Very shortly, we'll have 2 drawings. I'll tell you more about that and make sure you have filled out that card. But ladies and gentlemen, now the time has arrived. If you think Casey Jones was a famous engineer, you ain't heard nothing yet until you hear about Harvey Springstead. Not Springsteen. That's another famous New Jersey gentleman. Harvey Springstead didn't play the guitar to my knowledge, just played a little toot-toot tune on his steam whistle as he went by this tower. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to introduce Mr. Curtis Springstead again, the man who heard the tower was to be demolished. Curtis stepped up to the plate off the tower. Here's your chance in the audience to welcome him, make a dream come true. Dad was the engineer. Curtis?
Good morning, everyone. Let me add my welcome to all of you to the Society's major milestone, and certainly a milestone in this project. For me, it's hard to believe that it's only been 5 years, then here we are. Yet at other times, I didn't think we'd ever be here. So it's very nice. Glenn and Mike brought us together in the spring of 2000, and it's been a long time getting here. If you don't mind, I'd like to acknowledge the people who are very important to me who are here. My lovely wife, Ann, who suffered through most of this project. My daughters, Marcy and Jess. And then all the way up from North Carolina, my mom and dad, Harvey's little great-grandson, Ralph, and Lois. My brother, Scott, is up from the Carolinas also. And then more locally, we have my sister, Lois Corigliano, and her husband. Even my in-laws got sucked into this project. Marie Hennessy, who was here working with me a few weeks ago. My brother-in-law, Joe, and his wife, Jan, and his son, Anthony, running around here somewhere, no doubt. And I have to thank them for putting up with all the noise and the distraction over the last few years. So why Harvey Springstead? Well, in 1891, Harvey came here with his wife, Mary, and his son, Harry. He bought 2 lots on the corner of Lincoln and Franklin Turnpike and built a home here far away from the crowds and the noise of Jersey City where he'd been living. And for those of you from Waldwick who think your properties are doing well, he paid $150 a piece for those lots. But the interesting thing is that within a couple of years, you'll find that Harvey was very active in the council in town. He was a councilman, he was president of the council, tax collector, dog catcher, a few other things that I found when I did my research. He was very active in the Railroad Firemen's Union. He was a member of the Methodist Church over here in town. And just generally was obviously very, very involved, very excited to be in this area. When he first got here, he was still a fireman. He worked the local freight that ran between here and Goshen, New York. In 1896, he was promoted to engineer, and then in 1904, he got the honor of being put on passenger service here out of Waldwick with his first brand new engine, number 970, which he would operate for 21 years, steam engine for 21 years, with only one failure in that engine the entire time. And that just set him up for records that caused him to be recognized over and over again by the railroad. It seemed like they were inventing awards to give him. He was the very first engineer to get what they call the Order of the Red Spot, where they painted the number plate behind his number red. He was the very first engineer to have his name in gold lettering on the side of his train, since they had done that for a World's Fair at the turn of the century. He just set record after record after record. He was written up by New York newspapers for his exploits of getting passengers through snowstorms. He was even mentioned in the Saturday Evening Post when they first put his name on the engine. So in some ways, today is one of those sort of Oprah closing the circle moments for me, that it's been my honor to take a role in the town that he obviously cared a great deal about, and building a tribute to him and his fellow railroaders in Waldwick. Being able to stand here today, as Mike had mentioned earlier, required a lot of work and frankly a lot of people doing many tasks, some small, some large. And besides my wife and daughter Jess and Marie, who are all here in the last few weeks, will be cleaning things up, I need to also acknowledge the people you've heard about, but if you'll forgive me, Andrea Mistretta's artwork has been inspirational to us, also very economically advantageous for us as we continue to sell that. And she also coordinated this little party we're having today, along with Barbara Flurchek, who couldn't stay for the party, so I want to thank her for that. Perry Quarenta has done video work and some graphics work and things for us. I appreciate that very much. Tom Rosler of Fairmount Lumber down the street, if any of you need some 2x4s on the way out of here, he gave us a very good discount on all the materials we've used on the property. Mike Healy of Peary Construction, who did most of the work, and that noisy guy fixing his landscape back there needs a special hand. Ralph Scafani, I see here, he's done everything from working the newsletter to helping build that retaining wall on the side. Glenn Corbett, of course, who was one of the founders of the group and has sort of turned into our media agent for us. Thank you, Glenn. And then my fellow members of the Bergen-Rockland National Railway Historical Society. I see Don and Winters and John and several other places. They actually not only came out and did a lot of work here, but they donated some money, which was a big help. And I'm sure I've forgotten some of you. forgive me. It's not to slight you. However, as is in all these activities, there's some people who just did a little bit more, and I need to single out some people. The first is Art Barthold. I don't know where he went off to. He's probably off doing some other civic activity, but Art's been our construction advisor and general contractor on this project. He did that for a living. He's advised us on how to handle a lot of the construction, identified some firms to do the bids, stood here and watched over them, yelled at them, correct them, waited to have meetings with them, and so on. And then the one that scares me is he's called in a lot of personal favors. The other day I said, you know, we could probably use some gravel. The next day a whole truckload of it appeared in the lot. So I'm not sure how that happened, but I'm glad to see it arrive. And I must thank Art, because without him, this would not be happening today. So again, thanks, Art Barthold. You've heard from Mike Brunkhorst. He was one of the first people to start this program, and he's done so much, frankly, that I'm not sure I'm going to do his story justice, but let me try. He has a young family that puts demands on any of us. He has a very demanding job working in retail, which keeps him from being available on times. But he's always been around to help me out, meeting with borough officials here. Since I don't live in town, it's a bit of a trip sometimes. And he provides all this information about the history of the town. Whenever you meet Mike, he's probably handing you a photo or a document or a postcard that he just bought off of eBay or he found uncovered someplace in someone's house that's going to fill in the blanks here, and that's been a tremendous help. The thing about Mike is he's constantly worrying about whether he's done enough. And he's always asking me, what else can I do for you, Kurt? What else do you need to be done? How can I help you? And frankly, I think he's done more than anyone could have expected a single person to do. So again, Mike Brunkhorst, I thank you very much for your help in this project. The last person I need to single out and thank, I never actually had a chance to meet. Yet without him, this project would have no financial basis. And of course, that's Robert Keeble. His sister Lorraine, his cousin Roberta are all here today, and in memories of his extended family. They tell me he had a reputation of being a kind and generous man. We were obviously the beneficiaries of that generous behavior. They also told me that he had found a way of finding humor in life, and I tell you, we could have used humor at several points in this project. I'm sorry he wasn't here. As was pointed out earlier, he was shown our project by a friend of mine, Richie Fritz, in what would turn out to be the last few months of his life. And he felt so strongly about his train hobby and about what we were trying to do here that he left us $50,000 to start this project. And that's why the upstairs room is going to be named in his honor. That donation really has fired off the work that we need. This is going to be about a $200,000 project. So some of you think your home remodeling is expensive. This is just 2 rooms. We've already doubled that money through the help of this county, Bergen County Matching Fund grants, and next week we'll be submitting an application that would yet likely double that money again. And in a project that takes this long and with this much activity, there's inevitably times when you're wondering, how can we do this? This is getting to be too much. This seems to be destined to go against us. But when I found myself thinking that way, I reflected back on Bob's commitment to this project, and I found somehow the way to persevere to make sure that I honored his contribution and his memory and his hope for what would happen to this tower. So I would like to think that today, that Bob's spirit four movements an hour, whether you want them or not. That Bob's spirit and Harvey's spirit are together and look down upon us and are happy with what we've done in their name. So Bob and Lorraine and his family, thank you very much for your help. And then finally, we're about to get into the next phase of the project, which is making the museum out of it. Just out of curiosity, who here has either worked in this building or visited this building while it was working? At least 100 of you told me this while you were here. So what's going to be important is to capture what's in your head, those irreplaceable memories and observations about the people. This building is about people, not about the wood and the nails and the paint. It's about the people that worked here and made the railroad what it was. and we'll be looking to work with you to capture that information and share it for generations going ahead. So, make sure that you let us know how to find you. We look forward to having you again. And once again, let me thank all of you for showing up. Thank my family for their support, and enjoy your day. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Curtis. What a guy. Going to get on to the drawings right now. Not going to keep you too late. Hopefully in 2006, the museum will show more of that railroad history up there now with your donations. And these trains will be going by forever. We have two drawings. The first for the memorabilia to be given out about the famous Harvey Springstead Memorial Tower. And this is Danielle. Hi, Danielle. How are you? Good to see you. Going to draw something out of the book? There could be a piece of the tower. Who's got the gift, or who's got the what we're drawing for? Where is it?
Right there.
Can you bring that? Bring it out here at the base of the steps before we draw this. Oh, it's all right. Okay, look at that. Oh, man. So, right there, Andrew. That's good. There's a spike in there. All right. Anyway, we're going to draw right now. We got the name. Daniel, thank you very much. One more to go, so just hold on just a minute now. And the winner of the memorabilia, Leslie Wurst, W-U-R-S-T, Lafayette Avenue. Where are you, Leslie? All right. Oh, great. Mike Bronkhurst will give you the memorabilia thing. I think it's wonderful. She's from Westwood. Leslie, congratulations. All right. Bob Keeble's neighbor. Okay. Congratulations. Something to really remember for a long, long time. Final drawing will be to the person or persons who will accompany Mr. Springstead and members of the Keeble family to be the first up the stairs to the second floor of the tower. And the winner of that first person to go up that tower now, okay, is Harold Wurst. Harold, you're going to go up. Oh, my. Talk about a cleanup. Harold, get over here. Oh, man. Okay. Thank you very much. You can get down, Eddie. Harold, stand up here. I'm going to bring Curtis back up, Harold. Congratulations. Stand up right there. Okay. And remember now what to expect up in the top deck. It's going to be a museum. So there's not a lot of telegraph keys. There's not a lot of pictures. There's not a lot. But I looked at the bottom of the window panes. The original wood on the window sill is from the original tower 115 years ago. So, look around up there and get the feeling when you go. And, Harold, when you go up there first with Curtis, remember after they're going up the steps, be very careful going up the steps now. And as you go in, and be very careful coming down the steps. We're going to have little groups of 4 and 5 people. And, we'll get you all up there in a hurry. And you look out, see the view up there. And remember, one guy worked up there for 50 years. So, Curtis, did you come back up here with Mike and Lorraine? Can you, come on, you want to bring Danielle back up here too. Danielle, come on, that's the way we go. These people are going to be the first people up there now as we open this magnificent tower. You're going to climb a few steps. Lorraine, thank you so much for being part of this and your family. Let's have a hand for her. As soon as Curtis, start up there. Ralph, this is Ralph Springstead. Ralph, the great-grandson. Great-great-grandson also. He's great too. He's the third great, and you are the second great-grandson. So the members of the Springstead family now, climbing the steps. Remember, be very careful. Now, groups of, we understand the groups will number, 4 or 5? Anyway, somebody in charge of that down there. Put them together. I'd like to remind you that on those tables out there, you may want to look at those scale kits of N gauge and HO gauge of the tower These guys are really some piece of work out there. They manufactured these little kits. If you want to make a donation and build one of those kits, see the guys out there from the Erie organization, and they'll make sure that you get something to remember for a long, long time. We ask you all to abide by the famous railroad's famous saying, watch your step. Be careful, take your time. On behalf of the Springstead and Keeble families, the Waldwick Historical Society, the All Aboard Committee, this is going to be open till 1 o'clock. Thank you so much for coming. Small group now, 6 or 8 will be next as soon as they come down. Single file up the steps. Thank you so much, folks. Let's have some music over there. Pump up that music. Yes, if you'd like to get some refreshments while you're waiting in the tent over there, don't forget the refreshments. Cookies and refreshments.